Home today.
Yeah, we got all the nice shiny layouts again.
I had a bad night with Finley's, and he was fine for the start, but as soon as I was like, I'm gonna go sleep now, he went, I'm gonna wake up now. And then he settled again at like very late on and managed to get some sleep. But I thought, you know what, I'm too tired to walk to the office, and there's nothing there. It's bleak. Like I'm already tired and sad. I'm gonna stay here where it's warm and I've got a
You need a
blackboard.
pot plant in there. You need like a cactus or something in there.
I need to speak to Deborah Reed, is it? Yeah, Deborah Reed. She's Blooming Wild. She said she'll send me a plant for my office. So
Oh, nice.
I need to make that.
Oh, very much take advantage of Blooming Wild at home.
No, I've never actually. I've still not checked them out. And obviously I know the concept, but I've not actually subscribed or done anything like that.
They have lovely flowers. Please send us some.
Right, welcome to day 15. Halfway.
We are
I need
halfway.
an applause noise.
Yes.
There we
Although,
go.
technically speaking, we haven't done the challenge yet, so we've only got 14 nailed. But not to be a downer, but I am.
But yeah, well, we'll do it now. So we're on day 15. This is the 30 Days of Tools live stream where Mark and I and guests, when occasionally neither of us can make it, talk about what we actually do the challenges. So 30 Days of Tools is a tool-focused initiative of our 30 Days of Testing. We have created 30 awesome challenges and a few bonus ones this time as well, which you'll hear about in the future. A few bonus challenges basically to get you talking about a topic or get you sharing, get you having conversations, all about tools in this instance. And given that Mark and I are huge advocates of using tools for your testing, your automation and everything like that, we thought why not stream and actually really take part this time. So,
Why not?
Why not? So today it's a good one for me and you, this Mark. I'm struggling for examples, but the topic as a whole.
I've got a couple.
So today's challenge, if you've not yet logged on or opened your emails, is what does good tool documentation look like? And on top of that, if you can share a helpful example and briefly explain why it's helpful. So, a few hints that Simon's given us. What is it about it that you found helpful? How did it help you as a tool user? What do you look for in good documentation? Which is, I know, where me and Mark can have a nice little chat. Should you find it, and can you contribute to it? And what aspects of documentation do you find unhelpful? So, Mark, if you've got some examples, then I'll let you.
I've definitely got some thoughts on the bad examples side of things. I mean, when I looked at this, the first tool that popped out of my head is Cypress, because I remember the first time I looked at Cypress, I kept hearing about it and sort of like, oh, I should probably sit down and have a look, see what it's like and stuff, and have a play. And I do think like it's one of the factors why Cypress has become so popular is that its documentation is really good. And it's really good for a couple of reasons. And like some of my bad examples, I will add is that it's not about the volume of information. It's the way that you arrange it. It's the way that you communicate it.
Sorry, I'll tell you why I'm laughing. I'm laughing. I don't want to derail you, but I'm laughing.
No, go on.
As you know, I'm currently in the process of switching MOT's UI to a free column view. And I haven't seen Cypress as an example of the free column view. I've been using other examples of it. But it's the same thing. It's kind of this like overall nav on your left, content in the middle, but then navigating that content on the right. And it literally is what I'm building for most of Mott's pages. But anyway, back to you, Mark.
That's useful. But you've kind of nailed it there. That's why I like this documentation, because it's very easy to navigate. It's very clear. I like the fact that it's talking about beyond the tool. Some of the things that it talks about in the documentation, I don't necessarily agree with. I don't know if they still have, I'm looking at our screen share at the moment. I don't know if they still have best practices, which just as a term brings me out in hives. and some of the sort of attitudes towards like design and stuff are not things that I would agree with. But I like the fact that like good documentation is all about addressing, like focusing on the problem, not just the what it does. Like I even remember as a kid, like I remember like trying to do something in Microsoft Word, going in the help guide, and I looked in the help guide to find out what an option did in a preference box or something, and it was something like the option was like rearrange paragraph, and then I looked in the help guide and it said. This option is used for rearranging paragraphs, and you're like, well, that doesn't help me. Whereas stuff which is more like, this is the problem that you're trying to solve, this is how the tool can help you with that sort of thing. I think that's what stands out, and I think that Cypress does that quite well. Yes, you need the reference stuff, as in to detail the functionality of things like that, but actually, yeah, like thinking about like talking about your tool within the context of the problems that are being solved and stuff. Yeah. I think that's what's good, and that's what jumped out to me with Cypress.
Yeah, I just had it. Well, people saw it on the screen again. Obviously, have a Google yourself and have a look. But yeah, I noticed similar things, like they explain in kind of the reasons why the features exist. I agree with you. I think that's a nice example. And yeah, like the terminology might not be our favourite, but like the fact that they've gone, here's an anti-pattern in their opinion. Here's, they're using best practice, but here's a good practice of how you can, avoid that. So yeah, I've noticed as well, Mark, so some of the things that we talk about, nice code examples in this that you can scroll down. And what I noticed with the code examples is they have quite good explanations about the API underneath as well. And they're even suggesting, again, like, good practices, but like how you shouldn't use their API, because obviously a lot of APIs are quite open, so they're giving you good ideas. But yeah, I know I jumped in, but I think it is well structured. I actually think it's quite nice design as well, like with the it's not just a block of text, like they've put headers in, there's bullet points, there's links, there's code examples, there's videos. There's GIFs, like there's pretty much every type of useful medium in here.
Yeah, and another thing as well that sort of stands out to me is something that we've been thinking about a bit is the onboarding process as well. So onboarding is documentation as well. So just giving you enough to get through the process and stuff, and having like example, like demo code that you can look through that's code commented and stuff like that. I think that's really useful and really clever as well. And I think it's also being aware of, like obviously you and I have talked about how we process that sort of information differently. I think it's smart because it's trying to address it for both sides, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. So that I know that's your first one, and you said you had a few, but like I think top of my head, Cypress is the one that just comes to mind, and it's actually not from a personal experience why it comes to mind. It's listening to the community and the number of times I've seen it referenced as a solid example of documentation. And I'm trying to now think if there's any tools outside of testing that we potentially use at Mott that have good docs, but again, I'm nothing's jumping out at me. A few bad examples.
I suppose another one that comes to mind for me is, but I think it is more on the support side of things, is Circle CI. Whenever I've run into issues with Circle CI, I've been able to look at their support forums and find solutions to issues, but also they've been, it's been very good in terms of conversations and support, and people have been very friendly and non-judgmental when you ask the silly questions and things like that. So it's that, but then that's kind of, that's taking that step beyond documentation, and it's more, those specific conversations, that specific support you're looking for. But I'm not sure. I mean, I would say, like, I think about like something that's as I become more comfortable with code, is API documentation becomes more important to me, and I do think things like Selenium have quite nice, like the API docs and stuff are well supported and things. And whilst it's maybe like in the past, I haven't looked for a while now, and I know they've done some changes and rebrands and stuff. But whilst in the past it's been a case of like the documentation's been light in the sort of style of Cypress, I've always found it easy to just look through the API docs. It's a well looked after, clearly, like the code base is well looked after. It's clearly, the intention is clear and stuff. The naming of things as well is super clear as well.
I think that's it with the we might as well compare the two. They love to do it between themselves. But yeah, like as you said, like if you're in the code, the documentation is very often very clear, like the Java docs that are auto-generated, but they're just not in the same style as like a holding your hand, kind of walking you through, talking about the problem space that you might want to use that API for. And I think that's where Selenium have always struggled. But they're an open source tool. They don't have the cash that perhaps Cypress have, and the ability to hire people to do these things. But yeah, I think that there's clearly things jumping out, like you mentioned, like just nicely looking, laid out page, easy to navigate, easy to search, and then as you said, the code examples, the supporting material, all that stuff leads to pretty nice, solid documentation.
I mean, not to dive into the negative Nancy stuff too quickly, but then we're talking about like that 3-column view. It's really useful and stuff. I mentioned before, like I've been playing around with Pact a little bit for my book. Come on, I'll give you a drum roll to get that. There we go. Yes, but I was looking at Pact. I was learning Pact, and it uses the same sort of type of layout system. But the way that it was arranged, I really struggled. Like I got the information that I needed, but I found I had to use Google to drive me to the right page within the documentation, because one of the challenges of a tool like Pact is because it is supported, because you have basically 3 entities of consumer, provider, and broker, and then you've got all the different languages and different libraries that it can engage with within those languages and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff to manage there. And I found, sometimes that could be very confusing. Like, should I be looking in the Maven? Like when I was trying to set things up, I was like, should I be looking at the Maven docs? Should I be looking at the JUnit 5 docs? There was many ways in which you could solve the same problem, but it was hard to know what was sort of what. And it's. I think another thing as well is just. Sometimes it's like assumed words and assumed content and things like, all you need to do is just refresh the Spring context beans to do blah, blah, blah with this, and then rejig the, wiggly woo. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? I've literally just learned this tool and you're talking about some sort of like very specific part of your tool. That can be quite tricky as well.
Absolutely. And again, like before we dive into that, I think, like Simon's little prompts, like... talk about good documentation, like you said, there's so many things people can do, but the effort needed, like, so we've mentioned a few already, but like glossary of terms, right? If there's key terms that your tool uses, then obviously make that accessible. Technology now, you could have a link every time you use that tool. You can have a little question mark, you can have a hover over tooltip. There's lots of things you could do to help anyone who lands on that. Code examples are always useful. Again, they'll keep them up to date. Like that's one of the things I used to struggle with in the past with a few, I would say, more open source tools that have tried to do documentation. Like obviously, these people are incredibly busy, right? So we would argue that I'd probably more happy that they're maintaining the tool, right, and improving the tool and adding features than they are their docs. But at the same time, like copy and pasting or using an example that doesn't work anymore is kind of a bit frustrating. But I know why it happens, right? Me and you have both, we talked about blogging before, right, before we came on air. We've both got blogs out there with code that just no longer works. Like it's not even remotely relevant anymore, which is good because no one should be finding it. But it's also like, that code, even when it was relevant, went out of date quite quickly. So I know how hard it is for people to keep these things up to date. Yeah. And then I think one thing you hinted at is that kind of onboarding, but like the order of the docs. So doing it in a way that is kind of the journey that someone would go on. So not like highlighting your best features first, but like doing it in terms of installing the first few things you might need to do.
Well, you can almost apply like Bloom's taxonomy, like the stuff that we talk about around learning and setting out clear learning outcomes. It's the same sort of idea of like you can't create something unless you don't have like a fundamental understanding of how it works, or like how to be able to evaluate where this tool can be used in different situations. And I think that's it. Is that it is documentation isn't just sort of informing; it's teaching. So you have to sort of almost treat it like teaching material, which is why I think it's awesome. As a little plug, we've got the Selector Hub videos that we've just put live, and I think it's awesome that that there's that body of material that's being created, which is sort of just the attitude of I'm just going to teach you how. Like the teaching comes first, but the tool comes secondary.
Like Sanjay did
rather
a really
than
good
just
job
going.
on that.
Yeah, and it's not just listing the features. It's sort of like, how do you solve these problems with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go to the club, but it looks like people are struggling a little bit because we only have
Friday
one reply.
as well.
It is Friday. Yeah. That's true. I've made us a bit wonky. I'm going to fix that just because you're OCD and everything. There we go. And our only response is from Christoph. So I think there's a few things here. Like you said, it's Friday. Or also, it's actually quite a tricky question just to try and remember off the top of your head, because a lot of the time you digest docs to solve your problem and then you kind of move on. Unless I'm learning a new tool with like great intent, I'm probably not going to read through the docs. I'm probably going to try and start, or I'm going to follow someone's tutorial or a course or something like that. It's very rare I'm going to start on page 1 of the docs and work my way through. So you kind of... Perhaps, like I said, you digest it and you move on, you might be struggling to remember some of the nice docs that you've looked at.
I'm going to make a bold claim, but I am going to stick to it, is that I just don't think that there's that much good documentation out there. And say from that teaching perspective, like there are docs out there. So like when I think of really bad docs that are but are very detailed, I think about things like Amazon's cloud documentation. I think of like when I was trying to learn G Cloud and Kubernetes and going through Google's documentation. It was comprehensive, but it was impenetrable. And it wasn't, for me, delivered in a way that was like easy to learn through. And I think that that's like, either you have people who have like no documentation, or you have too much, but it's like, say, it's a wall of information rather than sort of bite-sized proper teaching sort of based stuff. So I think that's probably why maybe we don't get so much response, because people haven't quite found that stuff that's like, wow. Which again, goes back to the Cypress point again. Like it does get mentioned a lot.
It does.
They've got something right there.
And it'd be interesting, if we ever get a chance to talk to them one day, like just to think, how much do they put on their docs for their growth? Because it's grown insanely big, right? Pretty much came out really got very quick take up, and now they're one of the go-to tools for doing UI automation. But I wonder how much the emphasis they put on their docs and how much they think that played a part versus things like perhaps just being in JavaScript, right? And JavaScript is popular, or whatever other reasons. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. So we've only got Christoph to discuss, but I think this first point is quite interesting. He's talking about Postman's documentation, and now they have a feature where you can import a Swagger. What does Swagger call it? Do they call it a Swagger doc or spec? I'm guessing a spec's probably the right
one. It's an open API spec now, but or Swagger doc. Depends basically which version you're using.
And he's saying it's nice because they provide a Swagger example. So, they've obviously installed their own instance of Swagger somewhere, had an example so you can actually practice the whole flow if you don't have your own company's Swagger docs in the first place. So I think, again, that's a really useful addition. He reckons good documentation is short and straight to the point. How can I find it? Ideally, if it's all in one spot, then that's quite useful as well. If anyone can contribute it, that's also a good factor. And things like tips and tricks. So that's what we mentioned about Cypress, like the going beyond. Here's how it functionally works. to hear some, good advice, some good practices, which is nice. What sort of documentation is unhelpful? None at all. Accurate.
Sadly, still the case, isn't it?
Outdated. I think documentation without examples. I think that's interesting. Like in terms of examples of code, I think is important, but also examples of use cases and scenarios that you could also do with it.
That hooks into what I was saying earlier, which is framing it around the problems that you're trying to solve, rather than just a reference manual that explains each detail. Because ultimately, those sort of things end up just looking more like a requirements document than an actual guide.
Yeah, and I think the last one we've hinted at it. No visuals, but I think you can go beyond that. I really do think now. Like obviously visuals make a difference, GIFs, videos, code examples, interactive code examples, but also just chuck a bit of CSS at it, make it look nice, make it pleasant to read, have good font spacing, have a nice clean layout. We actually had Cypress up a minute ago. I think the only thing I didn't like is on my screen there's a hell of a lot of white space. So I'm trying to learn a lot of CSS at the moment. Like I know how to fix that. I know what they could do. But yeah, try and maximize the layout and make it as clean, as crisp as possible. And as you said yourself, not just a big wall of text that's terribly laid out. I think that's really important. So yeah, hopefully I think a lot of you will have opinions on documentation. We're not trying to name and shame here. Like I think that might come across a little bit. Like we genuinely want our whole industry to improve, and we're talking about being tool aware when it comes to 30 days of tools. Yeah. And a lot of companies struggle with it. So if you do have bad examples, stick them on there, because people want to learn from it. Like we want the future tooling that comes and the tooling that we have right now to provide the right docs so that everyone can get up to speed quickly. Well, not the right docs, like useful docs. And so I think there's a lot that these companies need to learn. So yes, you might feel like you're giving them a poke, but don't worry about it.
Well, documentation is hard. We have the same thing as well. Like I'm trying to expand the knowledge base for Ministry of Testing as well, and I've it's all right in some places, but there's definite gaps as well. So by all means, look at our documentation and tell us what we're missing and stuff like that. Because I think it's something that requires investment in. It's not something we could just do quickly at the end of things. And
I know you plugged your bookmark, but
bookmark. I'm selling a book, not bookmarks.
How's the documentation for RBP, would you say? Vessel Booker Platform, which is our kind of test.
So I am sort of sitting here, and there's a little, little devil in the back of my head going, yours isn't that much better, is it, Mark? I mean, it's not too bad. There are details on how to get things set up and stuff, but I think it probably could be improved. But obviously, because I'm going to argue because it's a training application, it's deliberately designed to be a little fake.
Only if you make that explicit. So again, if that's part of the journey, whereas it's just not been done very well.
Consider this is that point. Okay. I've made it explicit. Leave me alone.
Fantastic.
It can always.
All right, so we are now actually halfway through. So. Dancing as well. Oh, I might have some. Yeah. This is more your dancing material, isn't it, Mark? Bit of metal. Yeah, that's more your street, isn't it? Anyway.
I remember when you had that on. I very much enjoyed that test fashion.
So. A few things to update you on. We will not be around on Monday, unfortunately. So we will do a stream on Tuesday where we will.
It's going to be a long one.
Do 4 days in a row just before our workshop. So we'll see how that one goes. We might have to time box it. But yeah, so like I said, we're back on Tuesday. Monday, Mark is playing Daddy Daycare, and I have a lot of swag to move into our new office. So everything that got put into storage because of Test Bash, all the fun things that we ordered that was all ready to have an awesome event, all now need to come to our new office because there's no point having storage and an office. So I'm going to move all that stuff. Which is good because you probably not want to be watching this, but there's a few people that are waiting for me to send you hoodies and caps and all sorts of things, and I will have them soon. So I will send you them. And I've also had an idea. So I haven't told Mark my idea yet.
Oh dear.
But
oh dear.
As it's getting closer to Christmas, and a lot of places do things like Secret Santas, and just generally people give out gifts, and especially now we're all remote. I'm actually going to create a few like Christmas bundles, because we've got a lot of stuff that's kind of been, we had ready for events. We've got caps, hoodies, tons of notebooks, drinks bottles, coffee cups, travel mugs, like lots of stuff. So I'm going to create a few bundles, and I'm going to put them on the MOT store and try and get them all set up. See if people, then you can order some, Secret Santas or just gifts for your team. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. And I think we're done.
I think we're good, yeah.
Is there a conference happening soon, Mark?
I think so. I think something called Test.bash is happening in less than 2 weeks now.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah. So, yes, please, if you're a Pro member, it's free to attend. All you need to do is just hit the registration button so you can get all the login details and, get all of the latest information about Test.bash coming up to it. If not, you could go Pro, or if you are looking just to attend, just want to attend the event itself, then head over to our events page on Ministry of Testing, and there is a link to buy a ticket. And a ticket grants you access, and you will have lifetime access to the videos afterwards as well. So it's not just like for the day, it's for the lifetime of those recordings.
Fantastic. Right, I'll see you all soon, and thank you very much, Mark. See you later.
See you later. Bye.
Bye, everyone.